Let's open up the mailbag. Did Steve Kerr help Tatum on purpose? Lots of 3-on-3 questions. And Joe Mazzulla, player coach? It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started, raising business, how we finished. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We got you covered every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next few weeks. We'll go back to 5 days a week in not even the end of September. Training camp's opening up pretty soon. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Answer these mailbag questions for me today if you'd like. Just have some fun there and enjoy the show. If you're new, I'm John Karalis. I've been covering this team for nearly 20 years now and doing this podcast for 9. Yeah, October 13th was actually this podcast's birthday. I'm recording on October 18th, which is the anniversary of episode 2. Yay, 9-year birthday of episode 2. I just got to start out by saying thank you to everybody. This show has gone through incredible evolutions. I remember I lived in Queens, New York, Long Island City, where it was September. We were getting ready for the upcoming season, and Jay King called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" I said, "Yes, I would love to do a podcast." We called it The Rain and Jays. Then David Locke came to us with an idea, said he was starting a podcast network, and here we are, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Jay has moved on, and he does a very good podcast called Still Potable. So you can go check that out. Jay, consider him a good friend and an incredible writer, and I guess I owe him a lot, but don't tell him that because he'll think I owe him money, which I don't. I just owe him a debt of gratitude. But it's been great. It's been an incredible 9 years. So it's a very wordy way of me saying thank you to everybody involved, from Jay to Sam Packard. The three of us did this podcast for a while. Everybody at the Locked On Podcast Network, David Locke, through a lot of ups and downs in the early goings of the network, all of the people who have been involved, Tom Westerholm, who hops onto the show very regularly now, to everybody, Nick Angstead, who is our channel manager. Just thanks to everybody, people that I'm going to forget to mention. It's been a great ride so far. 2,059 episodes. 2,059 episodes. It may sound like I'm saying goodbye. I want to do another 2,059. So this is me saying a very incredible hello. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase of last-minute tickets. Terms apply. Let's get into the mailbag. Let me just, as an addendum to a mailbag last week, people are asking about Gershon Yabusele. He is signing a minimum contract in Philadelphia. Good luck to him. It's good to see him get another chance. I think there's some level of overreacting to his performance in the Olympics, but he certainly has shown that he can play at a higher level. So I hope it works. I hope that he gets a fair shot in Philly, and there might be a real role for him there. I know people wanted him in Boston. That was never going to happen. They were never going to pay to whatever the buyout was with Real Madrid. They were never going to add to their payroll exponentially just to have Gershon Yabusele there. But he might have a role in Philly, so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see Yabu come back. He'll get a great reception in Boston. So when I put out the call for a mailbag, you can send those to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's where I answer all the questions. It's the only way I answer the questions. Kevin did that, and he says, I'm paraphrasing. A couple of weeks back, you mentioned Tatum might ask Steve Kerr how to ward off complacency. after winning a championship. Do you think Kerr's benching of Tatum was his response to keep Tatum hungry and focused? Could Kerr have been helping Tatum? It's an incredible take. That is an incredible take on Jayson Tatum being benched. I do not think, and as much as we talked about, yeah, look, all of these guys can go and pick the brains of LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Steve Kerr. All of those guys they were not exactly like very willing to give up a lot of that information. They all addressed that, and they were basically saying, yeah, no, we're not giving up any secrets. Why would we want to give up any secrets? We're all trying to win championships too right now, and we don't want to give Boston the secret sauce. But I'm sure there's some level of conversation going on. But regardless, no, I do not think that Steve Kerr purposely said, hey, I will give you the motivation passive aggressively by having you sit on the bench. That's not what I thought happened. I think Steve Kerr basically said, for a variety of reasons, maybe it's because Tatum came into camp a little bit late, which he had his own personal reasons, coming off the championship, birth of his child, all of that stuff played into it. But he just decided that this was our best chance. And maybe there was a little bit of this is the last ride for Steph and LeBron and KD, but also all of those guys stepped up in huge ways, late in games, clutch performances to help the Team USA win gold. They would not have won gold without Curry and LeBron and KD doing what they did. But I say that if he had played Jayson Tatum and started him and played him a regular amount, who knows? Maybe Tatum would have stepped up. But regardless, that's not how it went. We can theorize a lot. I think Kerr just made a decision. But whether he intended to or not, there could be some level of motivation there. To the point of, like, a lot of people have been talking about that. I want to explore that concept. I think we're going to write about it on Boston Sports Journal, which I didn't mention, for those who are new, I am a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I think I might write about this there. And I think Wednesday's show might just be exploring the Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown kind of motivation. What should that motivation look like? How should they respond? We've talked about it a little bit, but I want to explore that a little bit more deeply, because everybody's hopping on board with that. Jayson should be motivated. Jaylen should be motivated. They should be mowing them down. This should be like ultimate revenge tour. And yeah, I love that concept, but how is that going to look? So I think Tom and I will talk about that on Wednesday, unless something else comes up. But that's going to be the plan here. Pete asks, is it just me, or was Olympic basketball difficult to watch? I know we're spoiled Celtics fans, but ball movement teamwork on Team USA was awful. There were too many prima donnas driving the lane, drawing double teams, and either turning it over and chucking up bad shots. Yeah, Team USA didn't play great basketball. They had great basketball players. I've said before, I've said it on Boston Sports Journal, I've tweeted it. I wholeheartedly believe this. Serbia and France played better basketball in those two games. USA had infinitely better players and more elite players than Serbia did, than France did. And that's why they won. They won because Steph and LeBron and KD, like I just said, they won because those guys. And in the gold medal game, Joel Embiid early in the fourth quarter as well stepped up. Those guys all had major impacts. They didn't out-execute Serbia. Well, in the fourth quarter, Serbia kind of like started to tighten up a little bit. But that's under the weight of the elite Steph and LeBron kind of bombardment. They didn't handle that well. Serbia didn't. But overall, they played better basketball. Overall, France played better basketball. The U.S., and this is why I keep saying, like, they need to have more role players, people who are used to moving the ball, used to taking shots in overflow situations, but not demanding the ball. So somebody like Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards, if they're in the game moving down, moving forward, well, they're primary scorers. They're not role players, or elite scorers, elite players disguised as role players. So, yeah, I can understand completely Pete saying that this was difficult to watch. They did not execute well. They did not. But they just had a ton more talent. I'd be very interested to see how the construction of this team changes. Coming up, we'll get into kind of a rethinking of how the NBA makes its money and a ton of 3-on-3 questions. That's all coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. I know that starting therapy can be a bit daunting, especially for the guys. I know a lot of guys maybe don't feel like they should go to therapy. It's a stigma, but we can break that stigma. I've gone to therapy. It's been very helpful for me. You can try it through BetterHelp. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule because it's all done online. So you pick the time and the place and all of that stuff. Just go to betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. You fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can start talking about whatever you need to talk about. And if you don't click with that person, and it's very important to click with your therapist, you can switch until you do find somebody that you connect with. Once you do, I'm telling you, you're going to probably feel pretty good because clicking with somebody and talking through whatever life throws at you can be very, very helpful. You do it on your own schedule. You do it all online, and switch until you find somebody you click with. Go to betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. You get 10% off your first month. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. HELP. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA next. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. No off days for Locked On NBA. Still 5 days a week, all week, covering all the big stories, all the local experts. It's a lot of fun. So go check out Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Michael, it's a long one here. Bear with me. I'll try to paraphrase it as much as possible. But he said in a prior mailbag, I talk about how the NBA, the guys get their money. It's their split of the money coming in. It's not like they're taking it away from teachers and firemen and whatnot. But he says we have to stop and ask ourselves why the numbers are so big and who that's coming from. A lot of it's TV money. And while I 100% agree with the splits, if those astronomical numbers are what's being generated, that tells you that we as consumers are being charged way too much, all caps, way too much for our TV packages. Fair enough. Fair point. And then he goes on to say, we have to stop and ask ourselves, is being robbed of our hard-earned money for things that just shouldn't cost as much as they do. If we all got back half of what we spent on the NBA and all the NBA talent makes half of what they're making now, I still think that betters the entire world. So let's explore that, because at the heart of this is the concept that there are people doing very important work who don't get paid enough money. And that is true. Teachers love teachers. They obviously are working very hard. It kills me to see teachers asking, like going online saying, hey, help me out. I'm trying to get these materials for my class and all of that stuff. And obviously the people who protect us every day in the public sector, the firefighters and police officers, who are people who are helping us on a regular basis, protecting us, don't make enough money. Like a lot of people, you can go down the road, right? There are a lot of people doing great work, social workers, public defenders, all of that, not making enough money. Okay, great. That's a problem that needs to be fixed. We address that. The money coming into the NBA is coming from consumers. You, me, not as much me anymore because, but people like me who are, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be paying, my league pass and going to games and all that stuff. Well, that's money that I make, and I choose to spend it on this stuff. They choose to charge a number that people will pay, and they will test the limits of how much people will pay for things. And that's just capitalism. And I don't want to say it flippantly because I don't want to get into a whole political discussion about capitalism and the ups and downs and positives and negatives with everything. We are charged if, whatever we pay for this phone, they come up with a number and they say, that's what you're going to be. That's what people are willing to pay. I have a pen here that's green. It's not going to show up on my, that pen costs a few bucks. That's what people are willing to pay. If you charge $10 for that pen, people won't buy it. So the Celtics are going to charge as much as they can for people to come in. And that's kind of how it works. The other side of it is it's your money, right? It's coming out of your paycheck. You have decided I'm going to spend $300, whatever it is, to go into the garden with however many people you're going to, and then food and drink and all that stuff. Well, that money, you're not taking, if you said if I was charged $100 for that, you're not taking the 200 and are you going to go buy that stuff for the teacher? Or are you going to go spend that money on something else? Or are you going to put it in your 401k? Or are you going to put it in something? Are you going to invest it? Are you going to be frivolous with it? Are you going to, put $100 down on the game? Like, what are you going to do with it? It's a very complicated discussion here. And I understand the venom of, well, we're paying all this money, and you are paying a lot of money. You're paying money to the advertisers for, who are sponsoring these games. You're paying money for the tickets. You're paying money for the concessions. You're paying money for jerseys and whatnot. And okay, if you cut that money in half, that's still money that's already gone to people. That's not money that's going to say, well, if you're not spending it on NBA games, then we're just not going to pay you that money. That's still your money. So if you want to pay that money in extra taxes to go pay teachers and firefighters more, then go for it. I get a feeling that a lot of people don't want to pay more in taxes. So when we get down this discussion of how much athletes are paid, it's this societal aspect of it. If society wasn't into this as much, okay, fine. But that doesn't mean that money goes to the other places that we say need more money. It's not how it works. So NBA players get their half of the money that's coming in. The people that have that money coming in, that's where they've chosen to spend their cash. If people decide not to spend their cash on the NBA, then I don't know if the NBA decides to lower their prices. Maybe they do. But I think they also look at the product and say, why isn't the product what it was? So that's a very complicated question, and I love having this discussion, but ultimately it boils down to players make what they make. The money coming in is what's coming in, and however you want to slice it, that money is not changing. No matter what they do to ticket prices, no matter what they do, that money, yeah, sure, maybe less money is coming in, but it's not changing all the other stuff that you want to change because less money is coming in. Aaron says, one of the reasons why the championship is so valuable is because it determines who won the season. The NBA Cup is fun in the moment, but unfortunately, it doesn't give us any closure. So what about this? Make it a 3-on-3 tournament. Full rosters available, but only 3 players on the court at any given time. I like the idea. I like it, Aaron. I think it's a little too gimmicky for what they're trying to do. I think they're just trying to add value to NBA regular season games. We get caught up in making the tournament better. That's not the goal necessarily. The goal of the tournament is to add value to regular season basketball games. So we're not going to take away 6 or 8 or however many 10 regular season games and turning them into 3-on-3 games. So it still has to be regular season games. And the whole point is games in December. And I think eventually they're going to want to move this into January and make January a little bit more important. But the whole point right now is hit the regular season hard, right away start with these tournament games, turn the tournament into something special, get people hyped up. In 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, tournament's going to start to shift. It's going to go, I think, maybe even Christmas, or maybe they just expand it. Maybe they do fewer groups or more games or whatever, but it'll get us into January. So there's that January doldrum. There's something to kind of carry teams through and carry fans through and all of that stuff. So that's don't lose focus of what the NBA is trying to accomplish. As much as I would love to see an in-season 3-on-3 tournament, I would love it. I think it'd be just some great like highlights and all that stuff. That's not the whole point, and got to move on from that. Got to go into the 5-on-5 and what's the NBA trying to accomplish. What about Olympic 3-on-3? Got 2 questions, the same question, coming up next, and then we'll get into a Legends duckboat and Joe Mazzulla, player coach. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. I am very excited to go catch a Red Sox game in person. They're making that run for the wild card, and I want to go there and watch them do it. And I'm using Game Time to get my tickets. Last-minute tickets to Major League Baseball, very easy on Game Time because they are now an authorized Major League Baseball ticket marketplace, but it's also theater, comedy, concerts, anything at a major venue, a big venue that's selling those tickets online. You can get them last minute there on Game Time, and you can save yourself up to 60% when you're using that Game Time app. They have panoramic views from your seat, so you know what you're getting before you buy. They have all-in pricing. You can just flip that on, toggle that on, and you can see the all-in price before you check out. They've got the lowest price guarantee, which if you find that same ticket, that same seat in the same section in row for less somewhere else, you'll get credited 110% of the difference. And your purchase will be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So go check it out at Game Time. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase of those last-minute tickets. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute ticket, low prices, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On Sports today. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube. It's on the Amazon Fire free TV channels app. Big stories all day long. Check it out. It's good stuff. Let's get back into the mailbag here. Bill and Mike both ask the same question, talking about 3-on-3 Olympic competition. FIBA trying to keep USA from winning gold. It's pretty clear what they're trying to do by having a lot of tournaments that qualify you for that during the season. So you can't have Jaylen Brown say, oh, well, I'm not on Team USA. Let me just go play 3-on-3 and get, my buddy Jalen Brunson and I don't know, somebody else, whatever. Donovan Mitchell, let's go play some 3-on-3. So both guys, and a lot of people probably want to know the same question. Do you think a team of recently retired NBA players could win 3-on-3 gold if they competed? Yes, because they're NBA players and they're playing against non-NBA competition, and the space provided allows a lot of the things that older NBA players can't do, which is like turn the corner and beat double teams and stuff like that. 3-on-3 takes away a lot of that. It's something just to say on a personal level, I realized once I stopped being as good as I used to be at basketball, when you take it down to 4-on-4 and 3-on-3, I had a stretch of like, it does extend how good you can be, because you can turn the corner and no one is there. And if the help isn't there, that's where you start to lose a lot. Like, you can do some things one-on-one. You can still, in your mid to late 30s, maybe even right around 40, do some things, but you can't get by the help. You can't, the decision making isn't quite there. And there are certain things you just can't do as well as you used to, but with two fewer defenders in your way, it makes up for the step that you lost, the extra half second that it takes you to do something, because you don't find yourself like, oh man, I couldn't split this double team. I couldn't spin around. I couldn't make this decision fast enough. So I do think that recently retired, like Joe Harris just retired, he could probably go on the 3-on-3 circuit and play pretty well. Now, I don't know. I know Big Three was just in TD Garden, and they had their championship and all of that stuff. There's probably a couple of those guys who can go and do pretty well. But at the same time, the other teams are young and fast, and they have some similar advantages. So I'm not saying it's a lock, but NBA talent is NBA talent. And recently retired NBA talent with two fewer defenders on there, I feel like they'd be able to live in that space pretty well. And so I think they could do that. That might be a way to get around it. But we talk about recently retired, like Joe Harris just quit. Is he going to go on to the 3-on-3 circuit and, 4 years later participate in the Olympics? I don't know. Maybe he could. Some of these guys who are kind of done with the NBA at an earlier age, maybe those are the recently retired guys. Like Kevin Durant. I don't know if Kevin Durant can retire in 2-3 years and then immediately hit the 3-on-3 circuit and then go participate in 3-on-3. He might be able to do that, right? But LeBron probably not. But who knows? Actually, I say that, but who knows? At 43 or whatever, he might still be able to go dominate. Just watched him dominate Olympic basketball. So maybe 3-on-3, he can, all that space that I was just talking about, he could just go thrive in that. That's a very long, convoluted way for me to say, yeah, maybe. Yeah, possibly. Danya says, after future championships, I'd like to see a Bob Cousy Legends duck boat reserved for any Celtic who was on a previous championship team who wants to come out and experience the parade. They could even set up a charity legends ball around potential attendees. It's a great idea. Now, there's the issue of like a Kendrick Perkins who is paid to say outlandish things, and some of the outlandish things offend the guys who are on the team. I don't think Joe Mazzulla wants, I can't speak for Joe, but you have a guy who called him basically a bird brain, who says you put his brain in a bird, it'll fly backwards. He probably doesn't want that dude around a championship parade. Come over here and celebrate and soak it up. Why would you be in the parade? Why do you want to be in the parade? You didn't believe in us. That's my take. If I'm a coach, if I'm one of these guys, sure. Like you gotta be able to pick and choose, but I think a Legends duck boat, like if KG wants to come out and Pierce and all of those guys, they want to be on these boats. Sure. Why not? Let's honor the past. Let's bring them back. Let's get Larry Bird back on one of these duck boats. At the same time, I don't know how many Legends would want to, because they have experienced their own championship. And I get this feeling that they might just say, I appreciate the offer, but I've won mine. I've done this. Let these guys have it, because they're the ones who worked and earned it. And maybe Bob Cousy wants one more ride, but I get a feeling that these guys who have been on those boats before, who have won championships before, and I'm not counting like Scal, because Scal is still around the team, right? He's still a broadcaster, so it's different. I'm talking about like James Posey. Like, he's not going to come in and celebrate a Celtics championship. Kevin Garnett might not even want to, because even though he's probably hyped that Boston won, this is their moment. And there might be some guys who just want to be part of it and celebrate with these guys, but that's how I feel like a lot of these legends might react to something like that. And finally, Hamed says, screw it. You think Joe has or will ask to be a player coach? Why not? He's young. You're telling me he can't take some minutes? Why not? Well, the not fun answer is he's not allowed to. Player coaches are no longer allowed in the NBA. Also a not fun answer, he's not good enough to play in the NBA. But it would be fun to see him out there trying to guard some guys. But he's the type of guy who would probably foul out in 9 minutes. That's me saying 8 might be too soon, 10 might be too many. And I'm splitting the difference that he'd foul out in 9. And the fun answer would be that he would hurt somebody and he'd basically be the Tasmanian devil. And after the third foul, at least one would be flagrant. There might be a technical foul in there, and he might end up hurting himself in the process. So as a sheer matter of protection for all of those around him and Joe himself, it's probably best not to have him as a player coach. But like I said, he's not allowed to by NBA rules. That is no longer a thing. And shout out Bill Russell for winning a championship as a player coach and being a legend for doing that. I don't know if player coaches probably wouldn't work nowadays anyway, right? Imagine Jayson Tatum being a player coach and playing 48 minutes. You know, like you can't have that. I don't think you can have a coach as a GM anymore. Like you can't do anything to run an NBA team now in 2024. Everybody has to have a hyper specific role. This isn't 1964 where it was Red Auerbach. Can anybody name his assistant coach? I don't remember who his assistant coach is. You got one, and he was the scout, and he was the president of the team, and he did everything. You could do that back then. Nowadays, we're getting to a point where you almost need 2 head coaches, but it's so granular. It's so, you got to get it down to that granular level. It's so complicated. We're playing chess at a 3D level, 4D chess even. It's crazy. So, but thanks for the question. I always appreciate the questions coming in. Questions can come in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I appreciate you guys sending in the questions. Go ahead and send those in. Mailbags on a regular weekly basis throughout the rest of the off season. I'll mix them in during the season as much as I can. So do that. And season's coming around. It'll be here before you know it. We'll be back to 5 days a week before you know it. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast, watch a show on YouTube, hop into that comment section. Let me know what you think, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.